So today's topic is going to be intellectual humility, a perspective from Eastern and Western wisdom. We're going to start out with a few slides on some individual instances where humility, the importance of humility is talked about in both an Eastern context and a Western context. And then it'll start to come together more about both views, how they agree with each other and how it's relevant to consciousness studies or just the search for wisdom as a whole. So we have here a quote from Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu of India, of West Bengal, India. He says, Trinad api sunichena taror api suhishnuna amanina manadena kirtaniya sadahari. One who is more humble than a blade of grass, more tolerant than a tree, who gives due honor to others without desiring it for himself, is qualified always to chant the holy name of Krishna. So what that means is able to speak and glorify the eternal truth, and in not such a dry way, more of singing the sweet song of the Absolute, because in the East and also some Western scholars also understand that the truth is not something dry, impersonal. The truth is alive, is conscious. And we'll get more into that a little bit here today, and especially at our next meeting when we specifically talk about Vedic wisdom. He goes on to say, O Lord of the universe, I do not desire wealth, followers, beautiful women, or learning. Birth after birth, O Lord, let me have unconditional devotion to you. O son of Nanda, mercifully consider me your servant who has fallen into the terrible ocean of material existence to be a particle of dust at your lotus feet. So again, this is said by Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in one of the only literatures that we have directly from him, the Sri Shikshastakam, verses 3 through 5. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is understood to be an incarnation of Krishna, Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And moving into Western wisdom, we have Albert Einstein here saying, everyone who is seriously involved in the pursuit of science becomes convinced that a spirit is manifest in the laws of the universe, a spirit vastly superior to that of man, and one in the face of which we, with our modest powers, must feel humble. We have the reference to where this quote was taken from at the bottom here. And now this is something from Plato in his work, The Sophist. Let us grant then that from the discerning art comes purification, and from purification let there be separated off a part which is concerned with the soul. Of this mental purification, instruction is a portion, and of instruction, education, and of education, that refutation of vain conceit, which has been discovered in the present argument. For as the physician considers that the body will receive no benefit from taking food until the internal obstacles have been removed, so the purifier of the soul is conscious that his patient will receive no benefit from the application of knowledge until he is refuted, and from refutation learns modesty. He must be purged of his prejudices first, and made to think that he knows only what he knows and no more. So, Eastern and Western wisdom agree that intellectual humility is one virtue, among others, necessary to discover truth. The ancient Greeks understood that an ethical purification of vice, called catharsis, vice meaning conceit, pride, such like that, is required in order to acquire genuine knowledge of true reality. Giving up the self-centered mentality where we only accept that which validates our personal feelings, biases, is essential to perception of truth. Similarly, ancient Vedic wisdom advises us to embrace a truth-centered mentality where we exercise open-minded rationality while recognizing our finite capacity in order to transcend the limitations of the material conception of reality and become a loving, serving participant in the dynamic play of the living, conscious, and sweet absolute. Now, with that background, small background on how both Eastern and Western wisdom clearly show us that humility is important in our pursuit of truth. This is more of a contemporary interest in intellectual humility specifically. This and the next slide will be from the John Templeton Foundation. So within the Templeton Foundation's character virtue development funding area, so they're giving a lot of money to grants in this area, intellectual humility is one of their primary interests. So intellectual humility speaks to people's willingness to reconsider their views, to avoid defensiveness when challenged, and to moderate their own need to appear right. It is sensitive to counter evidence, realistic in outlook, strives for accuracy, shows little concern for self-importance, and is corrective of the natural tendency to strongly prioritize one's own needs. In a nutshell, intellectual humility helps us overcome responses to evidence that are self-centered or that outstrip the strength of that evidence. This mindset encourages us to seek out and evaluate ideas and information in such a way that we are less influenced by our own motives and more oriented toward discovery of the truth. Our society prizes certainty over doubt and wants public figures with firm convictions, not evolving beliefs. Admitting when we are wrong is thus seen as a vice to deplore, not a virtue to celebrate. Intellectual humility, or recognizing we may be wrong in pursuit of deeper understanding, is an underappreciated practice. The ability to keep an open mind and embrace the possibility of being wrong are critical skills for personal, professional, and social progress. And at any time, if you have any comments or questions, please feel free to jump in. Now, this is also from the Templeton Foundation. This is actually from a project that they funded. This project was by Nathan Valentine. Here he's describing his grant project called Epistemic Humility as a Solution to the Problem of Disagreement. So this is Nathan talking. How should we react to learning about widespread disagreement? Our answer to this big question shapes our fundamental outlook on ourselves, others, and the world. And my project will compare three central answers: dogmatism, skepticism, and humility. I hypothesize that humility offers a plausible yet overlooked alternative to dogmatism and skepticism. Many issues in philosophy, theology, and science are controversial, and we know that others reject our views if we believe a question has one correct answer and accept one answer. We must impute error to our disputants. Perhaps they missed evidence or have a bias. I call this dogmatism. Seeing others as an error is a natural reaction to disagreement, but it can be uncomfortable. Dogmatism calls us to view disputants as flawed, but it's often implausible to regard them as appreciably different than we are. As a result, they may react to controversy in a different way, by doubting that anyone has given reasonable answers and regarding truth-seeking with pessimism. This sort of skepticism can undermine investigation. Humility may help us resist both dogmatic self-assurance and skeptical detachment. It suggests we should often greatly reduce confidence in our controversial views while also being sincerely committed to investigation. Now, please forgive me for this very wordy slideshow, but I just tried to, have this collection of things that nicely describe what intellectual humility is, and why it's so important. But I recognize that this is very wordy, so I apologize. So, is intellectual humility necessary for modern science to progress? Modern scientists claim to have an objective process for acquiring genuine knowledge of reality. By following the scientific method, scientists observe isolated parts of nature, create a hypothesis for how this isolated aspect of nature works, test to see if the hypothesis appears valid, and draw a conclusion. If other scientists can draw the same conclusion by replicating the experiment, then a scientific theory is accepted as objective knowledge of reality. However, nature does not just exist as isolated parts. The synergistic collective parts of nature comprise an organic whole. Furthermore, this objective scientific process does not exist independently. The objectivity of the scientific process is dependent upon the scientist who engages in science. The scientist is a subjective, conscious, living entity. It may be necessary for modern scientists to embrace an intellectual approach which recognizes the truth, the truth of their limited mental ability, imperfect sense perception, and overall finite capacity as an infinitesimal living entity who is but a part of the infinite organic whole, the absolute. A sense of isolation results from the mechanistic scientific paradigm. Many modern scientists are overwhelmingly convinced by the impersonal and unmeaningful implications of a scientific approach which only considers the size, shape, motion, and interaction of extended matter, devoid of their inherent connection with mind. This results in the propagation of knowledge which tells people that the progression of nature is guided by random chance, and that there is no inherent purpose to reality. The popular response to this perspective seems to be for individuals to strive to create their own purpose, which nurtures self-reliance and self-centered behavior. Modern psychology acknowledges that, quote, targeting self-centeredness as a part of an intervention to lessen loneliness may help break a positive feedback loop that maintains or worsens loneliness over years. We have the reference for that quote there. So, self-centeredness encourages the loneliness which plagues our modern society. Cigna's 2020 Loneliness Index, released on January 23, 2020, revealed that 61% of adults in America are lonely. This may be due to some people becoming anchored in their own personal beliefs and biases, despite the reality which is manifest around them and what the truth is revealed to be. Such behavior is rooted in self-centered awareness, which is a byproduct of the mechanistic paradigm perpetuated by modern reductionist science. So in these last couple of slides, we've just been trying to show the relation between the effect and the impact that the modern scientific paradigm of materialism and mechanistic metaphor being applied to nature and life, how that affects people. Basically, when you put the machine metaphor, the mechanistic metaphor, on nature and reality, and then you say the way to uncover the truth of that reality, which is like a machine, is to break apart all the parts, analyze the parts, and then once we understand each part, we can understand the whole because it's just a machine. But that's not the case at all. We can easily see that from just looking at a human being. You have a robot here in this picture, right? You can take all of these parts apart and then put them back together, and you still got the robot. It'll work. But if we have a person and we take the head off and the heart out and the lungs out, and then you put it back together, there'll be a vast difference because you'll have a living person in the beginning, and then you'll kill them. When you take off the head, you take out the heart, right? It won't be alive. So clearly, it's not a machine. Life develops as a whole. We talked about this a little bit in our last meeting, right? The embryo develops as a whole. The body itself develops with the living being as a whole. It develops as a whole. It's not like the arm is made and the leg is made, and then somehow inside the womb they're put together. That's not how it works, right? They have videos, they have sonograms of this. The embryo develops as a whole, and it's born as a whole. It's not a machine that's put together. And if you
all of the organs form at once together.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Which is completely different from a robot, right?
Piece by piece, right?
Yeah, I mean that's an important detail. So now when we look at the other implications of this machine metaphor, people start to think, oh, I'm just an isolated part of some machine, right? And so now that I think that I'm just some isolated part, I have this like consciousness of being isolated from everything else, that I can just exist by myself. Yeah, what are you saying?
Like that's when there's hopelessness, loneliness, meaninglessness, nihilism.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's coming from an improper application of this mechanistic metaphor. So we're trying to draw that, trying to show that connection in these last couple of slides here. So this suffering is coming from this improper, view of truth, view of reality. It's not the truth, and it's having an effect of suffering on the entire world. So the unity of a mechanical system is externally imposed upon it. The parts themselves have no intrinsic necessity which unifies them. Each part retains its identity, whether it is isolated from or connected to the mechanical whole. Biological systems or organisms operate much differently. Reality includes a plurality of logics. One way of thinking does not apply to everything. So it is inappropriate to apply mechanical logic to organisms. Doing so will only perpetuate unnecessary suffering throughout society. So now, going back to some of the Eastern wisdom that also talks about. So first, let me humbly attempt to make the connection between this attitude, which has produced the mechanistic metaphor being applied to nature, right? Modern scientists are very sure of what they do and how they do it, right? Their humility is not often, although we saw Einstein said that it must come to a true scientist who's really being mindful of what they're studying and what they're actually seeing. But I think it's fair to say the majority of the people who practice modern science, or many of them at least, they end up being very prideful in what they're doing, and they think they know it all, and they think that you can only talk about the inner workings of reality if you have the PhD in biology and chemistry and physics, and you can use the language, right? That that reality, the truth of reality, the inner workings of reality, is far removed from our direct experience of it, and you need the proper paperwork in order to be able to talk about it, and the pride and arrogance that comes with that. So if we can accept what we saw before, were you going to say something?
Yeah, like to add to what you're saying, to participate, you're saying like that need for respect, that like that scientists have that like pride because they want the respect, they want to be credible, and it amplifies their pride with the the need to have credibility for what they know is certain, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. I think it's not only scientists. This isn't trying to just single out scientists.
Yeah.
I think everyone is kind of like that, and it has its negative effect in all circumstances.
Could I say something?
Of course.
I actually totally agree. I think that to really understand reality, a lot of people think that you have to have a degree or you have to have some, accreditation. But I think reality is so experiential and personal that you can definitely explore it in yourself and in your everyday life without earning any of those things. So to act that way is, I don't know, it just shows that you aren't really understanding, I feel like. But if that is on topic, I'm not sure, but
yeah, absolutely it is. Lydia, you raised your hand.
Yeah, I agree with everything too. I feel like some people who go farther in their schooling tend to have a a superiority complex, kind of a God complex, and they feel like they know everything compared to the people that haven't gotten that far in their education. But yeah, I totally agree with everyone here. It's completely the opposite.
Alex, you're going to say something?
Oh yeah. As soon as I got accepted to grad school, I was like on high heaven. I was just like, yeah, like I got into grad school. And I felt that I had to take myself back because I felt the grasp of ego, like saying like, yeah, I'm above these people because I'm going for my graduate degree. But in reality, that really doesn't make a difference. You know, so I would definitely like be mindful of that in every situation where you have like, you know, moral superiority over someone, or you feel like that, because you got to ground yourself and be humble. And yeah, at the end of the day, and lead through example like that.
That's your good quality to be able to recognize that. That's really great.
Because if anything, we can take our knowledge or whatever wisdom we carry with us at whatever degree and share it through like with love and compassion instead of judgment or, you know, cynicism or jadedness. We should all just be sharing knowledge or what bits of wisdom from our personal experiences we have with each other as a way to help each other, like feel good about existing and being here, right? That's my view of like
I agree.
educating.
I feel like we could really learn more about everything from each other if we just listen to other people's experiences just a little bit more.
Yeah, I agree.
One thing that, so the author, or not the author, but the commentator of this Bhagavad-Gita here is Swami Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar. There's a saying by him. He's a very humble, saintly person who has taught the world a lot. And he has said that the closer that the finite being us, the closer that the finite comes to the infinite, then the less sure of their position they will be naturally. If we have a conception of what the infinite is, and we're starting to accept our finite position through practice of humility, then as we come closer to our relationship with the infinite, the more unsure of our own position we're going to be, because that is the natural dynamic. The more sure of our position we are, the less in touch with reality we are. That was one of his teachings, and I thought that was amazing.
The less you know, the more you understand, right?
Yeah.
That's what they say.
So we have a little snippet here from the Bhagavad-Gita, the last, I believe, the last 7 verses from chapter 3. So
I just picked up a copy for the first time. I haven't gotten started yet because there's quite a lot of reading to do right now.
Yeah.
But I am looking forward to that. I don't know. I know there's just like way too many versions, but
yeah, which one did you get?
it was I like searched through this forum for like a very like accurate translation, and I think the author's name is Swami. I'll have to show you. I have a picture of it, but
Sure.
yeah. Which one do you have? I should have asked you.
I personally would recommend 2. This one here is one, The Hidden Treasure of the Sweet Absolute, and the other one is Bhagavad-Gita as It Is.
Okay. I'll maybe we can send out an email with that information for everybody, just so we all have it, right?
Yeah, sure. So this first verse here is 3.37. The Supreme Lord replied, "It is the desire to enjoy the mundane that induces a person to commit sin, and in different situations it produces anger. It is utterly insatiable, extremely malicious, and the worst enemy of the living being in this world. As fire is thinly veiled by smoke, as a mirror is thickly covered with dust, and as the embryo remains completely enclosed within the womb, similarly, this desire covers the consciousness of the living being in these 3 degrees of intensity, according to the modes of material nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance, respectively. Knowledge is covered by desire, the constant enemy of the wise. It burns like an insatiable fire, never satisfied by offerings of butter. It is said that this enemy, desire, dwelling within the senses, mind, and intelligence, covers the perception of the embodied living being and deludes him. Therefore, O noblest of the Bhartas, control your senses and destroy this desire, the embodiment of sin, which destroys both knowledge and realization. It is said by the wise that the senses are superior to matter, the mind is superior to the senses, and the intelligence is superior to the mind, and the soul is superior to even the intelligence. O mighty Arjuna, knowing the soul to be superior to the intelligence, steady the mind with resolute intelligence and destroy the formidable enemy, desire." So it's important to note here that desire, the desire it's talking about, the Bhagavad-Gita, Krishna in the Bhagavad-Gita is talking about is material desire. Because proper adjustment of our desire is critical for a spiritual life and higher understanding, as I've been taught by my teacher. If we can learn how to desire humility, desire these virtuous qualities, if we can learn how to desire to develop a relationship with God, whatever our understanding of God is, if we can learn to desire these spiritual things, then that's proper utilization of desire. But here, he's talking about material desire. That material desire is the enemy of wisdom.
So when he says intelligence and the soul, is there a distinction between intelligence and the soul? Because I've heard like the word God be interchanged with the soul and intelligence, or all-knowing intelligence, or is intelligence referring to like the actual like material knowledge of things?
Yeah, there is a difference. There's a distinction given in the Vedic wisdom that there are 5 gross elements and 3 subtle elements, and that these 8 comprise material nature. And then above the material nature is the soul, and above the soul is God. So in the 5 gross material elements, there are earth, water, fire, air, and ether. And then gradually becoming more subtle. From earth, more subtle as water, more subtle as fire, more subtle as air, more subtle as ether. And through those 5 gross elements, earth carries the sense of smell, water, taste, fire, sight, air, touch, and ether, hearing, sound. And then within the material sphere still, you have mind. It's called manas in Sanskrit. And then above mind, you have ego, ahankar. And then above ahankar, you have this buddhi, which is intelligence. So how we can relate to those distinctions is that you can think, right? So you have thoughts, and then you can watch your own thought process. You can judge your own thought process. So we can see that subtle distinction right there. The thoughts are the object of the soul, right? And so it's said further that the mind is more of distinguishing this from that. Oh yes, the vehicle is the material.
That's the intelligence, right?
Well, the intelligence is discerning. The mind is judging this from that. This is different from that. And then the ego would be how you identify with this or that. you identify, oh, this is mine, this body is mine, or I am this body, you think like that. And then as we move higher up, the intelligence is discernment. Okay, this is that, this is this, and this is that, and I can use these things for this purpose. Then there's like another layer of intelligence. That's why it's intelligence. It's distinguished from mind. And again, the ego is there identifying with what is this, what is that, and how do you use these things. That also affects ego, our identity, how we identify with things. But ahankar means false ego, because we're identifying with matter. So anytime that we're thinking that something belongs to us, we're identifying that we are the body, that we are matter, that our identity is matter, isolated, separate from everything else, like we were talking before. That's considered the false ego. The proper ego is when we consider ourselves as an eternal soul that changes bodies based on our actions in this lifetime and actions in past lifetimes. And we'll get more into this at the next talk about Vedic wisdom. But basically, we can see that the body is changing in this lifetime. So for those who have some question about reincarnation and all, how can the body change? Well, we see that we're born, right, in like a little 2-foot body that's chubby. And then look at us now, like, is that the same body? Right? So just like that, the soul is constantly changing bodies at all times, not just, okay, a body last lifetime in this lifetime. No, in this lifetime it's been changing too. So, and based on, again, our karma means our actions. And so again, if we eat a lot of junk food, no exercise, then our karma will be, right, a fat body with diabetes, based on our karma. So just like that, our actions from last lifetime has produced this body to some extent, and our actions over the course of this lifetime may, for next lifetime. The idea, though, is to transcend that whole process by learning about our identity in relation to God and the spiritual. That's the idea. But so your initial question about the distinguishing between the soul and intelligence. So then, yes, the soul is looking at that whole thing, right? This and that is the mind. How I use this and that is the intelligence. And then the identity, how I identify with this and that is the ego. But the soul is there, who's experiencing all of that. What we are experiencing all of those distinctions is the soul. How we can become aware, we are aware of that whole process, all those subtle functions, that's the soul. And that's the real thing. That's what we are. Who we are is the spiritual being behind the matter, which is influenced by the dynamic forces in material nature.
And then God, the soul would be like an individual section of God. Like, I'm right? Am I getting that right? Like, so it's like a little stream of consciousness, or like a soul. Like, that's how I kind of view it.
Yeah, the term part and parcel is used to describe the relationship between God and the soul, because the soul is the same qualitatively as God, being of the spiritual substance, but not quantitatively. God is the source of the soul, and the soul is an infinitesimal aspect of God. That's how it's described in the Vedic thought.
Right. Cool. Thanks.
Of course. So then we have a couple of quotes here to start closing on by Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj, who I mentioned before, in order to bring it back to this relationship between desire and lack of wisdom and humility. So, truth is not accessible from a self-centered perspective. The first cause of our entanglement with material nature was our mixing with Maya, illusion or misconception, in a play of curiosity. But as much as we make friends with her, so much she comes to devour us. In this way, we are in the clutches of Maya. But in the beginning, our involvement was very slight, like one experimenting with drugs. The beginning of our play with Maya involved the voluntary misuse of our free will, and that has led us to this present stage where Maya has devoured us. Maya means our attraction for intoxication. Where there is love of exploitation, there is Maya. And truth is the opposite of exploitation. Truth is found in dedicating everything for the center, for Krishna. This was said in the book called Subjective Evolution of Consciousness. And we have PDFs to these books. So the standard of genuine humility is in relation with the truth. Prabhupada has defined humility as that which is absent where there is a spirit of enjoyment. Enjoying spirit or exploitation means aggression. There cannot be humility. Humility is only cent% service. There is no humility in exploitation or renunciation either. These two are opposed to the normal nature of the world. The spirit of exploitation and the spirit of renunciation both are a revolt against the proper smooth working of the truth. So they are totally misconceived. And the real humility must be in the relativity of the full aspect of the truth, not with the misconceived world. The standard is not of the misconceived, the madman. And this is in the book Sermons of the Guardian of Devotion, Volume 2. So, to bring it back to the humility of modern science, this is one of our favorite quotes by the director by the serving director of the Princeton Bhaktivedanta Institute, Bhaktimadeva Puri Maharaj. He says, with all our science, all the scientists in the world together cannot make a single blade of grass. So this is just pointing out that with all the egotism, all the puffed upness, all of the mechanical genius, no doubt, making rockets go into space, robotic arms, you name it, organ transplants, no doubt, there's a lot of technologically amazing stuff. But as far as life and consciousness is concerned, no lab ever, with all the billions of dollars of scientific equipment that they could possibly get their hands on, they cannot create a single blade of grass. Right? They can make fake turf grass, they can clone real grass, all these things, but they cannot create from scratch by putting together, as they claim, life is just chemical concoction, they say. So then you take this chemical, that chemical, and you make a blade of grass. And no, the answer is no, it's never been done and they cannot do it. And when we look at nature, how much grass is there in the world? How profusely is it being produced? It's overlooked to such an extent, but it's amazing. It's a miracle, right? A blade of grass. If we can make a blade of grass, then maybe there's something to what you're saying. But you can't do that. It's impossible. That's coming from God only, coming from the truth. So that is how we end this presentation. And then we just ask this question. Are virtuous personal qualities such as humility and tolerance necessary for the acquisition of genuine knowledge?
By genuine knowledge, do you mean like wisdom of the truth?
Yes.
So I would say definitely. I think it's a requirement to be humble in order to recognize the truth. I feel like the truth can't be recognized with the ego mind or Maya, as you said earlier, being in the way. So it needs to be recognized as something separate from the truth, in order to see it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, even the way that illusion is described, even within the context of the absolute, because the absolute, the infinite, includes everything, even illusion. So they say that actually the proper conception of illusion, it's a part of the Lord's energy. And it serves its purpose within the whole, the organic whole. So it's real. Illusion and misconception is real, but it's not the truth. It's there to misdirect those who want to misuse their free will, as I said before. They have that sincere desire to be exploiters, to take for themselves, to be self-centered, and they have free will to do so. They can do that, and then they'll be under the jurisdiction of illusion and misconception and the reaction of that until they choose otherwise. But it's all a part of the infinite, all part of the organic whole.
Right.
And as I mentioned last time, the next meeting that we have will be specifically about Vedic wisdom, because this presentation touched a little bit more than our last presentation did on it. But so next time we'll give as much as possible by my finite capacity, a more thorough evaluation and presentation of it. And then the following meeting will be about Vedic wisdom in reference to consciousness studies specifically. And then
I have a question kind of relating, like it might be a little off topic, but something that I've been kind of into recently. Advaita Vedanta, what is the difference between Advaita and the other, I can't think of the other name,
yes,
but you know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah. So all schools of Vedanta mean they are all coming from a specific commentary of the Vedanta Sutra.
Okay.
The Vedanta Sutra, Vedanta means the conclusion of knowledge. The primary source of Vedic knowledge is first coming from God into the form of these four Vedas, 4 books, right? Veda means knowledge. And then Vedanta Sutra was the conclusion of Veda. What is the essence of what the Vedas are teaching? Vedanta Sutra. That was written by Veda Vyas, who is also known as an incarnation of God. And then you have various teachers who made these commentaries on Vedanta Sutra. One of them was Shankaracharya, who had this Advaita Vedanta conception. Advaita means non-dual. Is non, is a negation, and Dvaita is dual. So Advaita means that the conclusion of Veda is that the soul, individual soul, is non-different from God. That all differentiation is complete illusion, is complete nonsense, and that only one exists, that one substance, and all like I said, all determinations, all distinctions is complete illusion. So that's what Advaita is presenting. And it's also known, Advaita Vedanta by some is also known as a Mayavadi philosophy. Mayavad, because Vad, again, means like truth, and Maya means illusion. So Mayavadi means those who take Maya to be higher than the truth. Because the implication of Advaita Vedanta is that God is existing, the Brahman, known as Brahman. Mm-hmm. Brahman is existing as God, as the supreme God, and as the individual souls. But the souls don't know themselves to be God. Somehow there is some covering. So what the Advaita Vedanta is expressing is that somehow illusion, if the individual soul is truly God, then somehow illusion is taking some primary position over God to cover that identity. So it's saying that illusion is higher than God. So that's not such a precise or whole understanding.
Right.
So then we have other commentaries on the Vedanta Sutra that then embrace dualism, like strict dualism, that there's just a very strict difference between the soul and God. But again, that unity that Advaita Vedanta was emphasizing too much is being ignored in dualism, because there is a distinction and there is a similarity. So the conception taught by Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who we quoted in the beginning of this presentation, is called Achintya Bheda Abheda Tattva, meaning inconceivable oneness and difference. That the soul is the same as God in quality, like we said before, but different in quantity. The God is infinite. We're not infinite. We're infinitesimal.
Right.
So that's the distinction that's drawn.
Oh, thank you.
Can you repeat that? We're not infinite, you're saying?
Right. We are a part of the infinite, but we're infinitely small. We're infinitesimal. Like when you count with numbers, right? You can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can count to infinity. So that's one kind of infinity, right? You can just keep on counting higher, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. That's
Yeah.
that's our kind of infinity. We're infinitesimal, infinitesimally small, because God is like, let's start at 0 and start counting with all fractions and decimals. Where do you start? Where do you end? You don't even know. You can start at 0.1 or 0.001. You don't even know where to start. So that's also infinite, but on a whole different scale.
Okay. And this is in what text? Like this is based on what Alex had asked, right?
Yes. So this is all based on what's called the Vedanta Sutra, and specifically, very much insight is found in the natural commentary of Vedanta Sutra, which is called Srimad Bhagavatam, which is written by the same author as Vedanta Sutra. So at the end, the author of Vedanta Sutra is Veda Vyas, and towards the end of Veda Vyas's pastimes here, he wrote Bhagavatam, which is the natural commentary on Bhagavatam by the same author. Many of the other commentaries are written by other people, not the author himself.
Okay. Is the Bhagavad-Gita in that text? Like, is that a part of it, or is that a separate?
It's not a part of the text,
No.
but it's a part of the same. It's building the same conception. The Bhagavad-Gita is seen to be more of like an undergraduate kind of level, and then Bhagavatam is seen as a more graduate level.
Okay.
Bhagavad-Gita is specifically Krishna himself talking. Bhagavad-Gita means the song of God. It's when you read it.
Oh, right.
Verse, it starts with Sri Bhagavan Uvacha. Means
It's from
Lord
Krishna's
says,
perspective. Okay.
Yeah, which is very unique. Very unique amongst the scriptures of the world, because none of the others are so much saying that this is coming from literally the words of God. It's more of the words of the devotee of God, or when the followers are writing this as they have learned. But Bhagavad Gita is specifically the words that Krishna spoke to Arjuna during this historical battle of Kurukshetra. So it's very unique in that way.
Yeah, something that I've been interested in recently has been just the non-dual perspective. And I think it's helped me a lot in just dealing with everyday life and, coming to the background of experience and, coming to that absolute truth, as I can see it so far, my finite understanding of it. But it's really helped me a lot. So I definitely recommend, if you guys have some questions about this kind of stuff, I'd look into like non-dual perspectives on things, and I don't know, it's really been beneficial.
Like a triplicity, right? That's what it's called? I think I've read a little.
I've never heard of it. Maybe, I'm not sure.
I
could look it up. What was it called?
Triplicity.
Triplicity.
Instead of dualism, there's three. I mean, you can. I think it's like correlated to like how religion. There's always constant,
absolutely
symbolic thing to do with threes and three aspects of things, like the God, Son, and the Holy Spirit, or
I see this.
I don't know what other.
Triplicity would be a little different than the idea of non-dualism is like the negation of triplicity. It's the idea that all discrimination is just an illusion, which is why that, yeah. So, which is why that when it's taken by itself and tries to negate all distinction, it's seen as too abstract because it's taking something that's real, which is unity. Unity is there without a question. Everything is connected to each other and is coming from the same substance. That's no doubt. But that unity doesn't exist in isolation, and that differentiation is a part of the unity. Like sometimes an example is given with the hand. You know, this is a single hand, and each of these fingers are different from the other fingers, but they're all participating in the unity of the hand, the function of the hand. So even though that these are all like kind of isolated, not isolated, but they're all separate and different, they all have different form, kind of different function, but they're all unified in the function of the total hand. So there's some context that unifies the things that appear different from one another, but that doesn't negate the difference. So there's a very fine.
What are all of your opinions on the yin and yang symbol? Yin and yang, is that dualistic?
That's non-dualistic, I think.
That's what I perceived it as, non-dualistic.
Yeah, I think like, wasn't that the Taoist? I guess their symbol with the snake and the bird. I honestly
Like
forget that story, but
are a part of each other, right?
Yeah. So all parts of the same whole. So that would go along with the non-dual perspective as well, which is like why I like to read the Tao Te Ching as well. Like that's a great read. So
that clears that up, because I don't know, I guess I'm sure a lot of people get confused with that the idea of the yin and yang, and don't view it as like there is an illusion placed upon it, like visually, because of the two parts.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like a lot goes along with various symbolisms like that, like with the material idea of it. You know, people just see the symbol and they associate it with like, you know, peace and but it has such a more profound meaning than that. A lot of people don't like look at, like we're talking about like the non-dual. So looking into that is definitely helpful, I think.
Thank you.
No problem.
Clarifying. And
I'm always happy to, man. I love talking about this stuff.
Well, I wanted to ask Alex and Lydia what you two were doing, like studying at Stockton, because I don't think I think Krishna Shavadas told me that you, Alex, were in psychology.
Occupational therapy. So
right.
Yeah. It's a lot. So much work. I'm drowning.
Yeah,
it's a lot, but I'm making it through. I'm doing really well. But it's grad school is like a different animal. It's a lot of work.
Yeah, so I'm a bio major. I'm an undergrad. But I have a concentration in pre-professional studies, and I'm planning to go to physician assistant school after.
Nice. That's awesome.
wonderful. I'm studying psychology.
I think I heard. That's awesome. That's great. Like this. Yeah.
I'm just really in college because I care about becoming a best self, more humble, more calm, more diplomatic, more understanding. I mean, I really don't have an end goal for with my degree. I'm just kind of risking. I'm having faith that I'll be led I'll be led to the right place with the
That's
right
awesome.
company and
Yeah,
good
I think you're gonna do awesome. I feel like when you let things up to fate like that, it always happens for the best. I think just the way things are, it's gonna carry you, and your devotion to compassion. It's gonna carry you. I promise. I don't think there's any worries. I mean, you seem like you're very devoted to this as well, and I think that's just gonna, you know, help you even more. I don't know.
Absolutely. And other people are in the same boat as well. So
Yeah.
they are just as confused, and they have just as much faith as you do that everything will work out. So it definitely will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lydia, I wanted to ask you, based on what you've learned in your biology program, have you seen, what do you think about what we're talking about and presenting in light of what you're also learning through your biology degree?
Well, I think the part we discussed earlier with people having a superiority complex, it's present in a lot of the people in my classes. A lot of people that are biology majors, they kind of hold themselves like they're better than people that are art majors. And
Yeah.
I feel like you don't really see a lot of humbleness going around in my major, and it's kind of concerning.
Yeah. I switched my major from bio, and I saw that a lot. You know, it's just like the acquisition of, you know, like jewelry or something else. Like when people have excess of knowledge, or not excess of knowledge, but just, I feel like when they accumulate too much, they feel like they have like a status, or they're higher in the hierarchy. And that's kind of concerning to see that that's how education, you know, has kind of led. I don't know if it could be a societal thing as well, but I definitely see what you're saying for sure.
Lydia,
Yeah, and then
Individualistic, right? The Western world is just kind of ingrained in that ideology. Individuals, like we went over on the PowerPoint, right? So
Exactly.
not much moderation, or faith in each other, or like just learning for the sake of learning,
Yeah.
and like loving it and sharing.
It's like you're learning to have a role instead of learning to, and I feel like learning to be an individual instead of learning to be an individual that, you know, is
Service, right?
yeah, you know, yeah, of service, right? Yeah, in the population, you know.
Lydia, do they talk much about the origin of life in your biology classes, like of abiogenesis or anything?
Yes, question.
Yeah, we talked about that in biodiversity and evolution a little bit, not a ton, but yeah, we kind of just made our way up from the biogenesis part of it.
What's like the general understanding that you got from that?
Well, there were a couple of different theories, but none of them that we discussed in class had any mention of God or a higher being. It was all just everything either came from this earth, and non-living things turned into living things, or they were brought here from another planet. But yeah, it was basically it.
Wow.
Mm.
It's important for a well-rounded education to have, even if you want to be, you know, some people who think that, you know, well, you don't know that God created everything. Okay, even if you want to take that approach, no problem, but at least offer it as an option then, you know, because It's
Yeah.
the complete other end of the spectrum of just being dogmatic, not in a religious way, but in an anti-religious way, that you won't even say, maybe God created everything, and not just leave it like that. Of course, there's a rational development, and scientific inquiry is still valid. But if the conclusion can be that maybe God created everything, then at least leave that option on the table for people. Don't just completely ignore it or dismiss it.
Right.
Yeah, I agree.
I can't believe that we do that. But
Yeah.
we have such it's just one extreme or the other
Hmm.
in so many cases, especially in science.
Yeah.
It never made
unfortunate.
sense to me through high school. In
Yeah.
all my science classes, I was always kind of loud about my philosophical views. Like my chemistry teacher just didn't like me because of it. But I was always trying to ask, well, how can you say there isn't some, how can you be so sure
Yeah.
that evolution was just the Big Bang? That's it.
Yeah.
You're
I've kinda,
teaching our young minds that not to have hope in something bigger that matters, that put us here in some way.
Yeah. I've
It's no
kind of
wonder
learned.
that a lot of the youth innocence is taken away, because we're forced this reductionist view. Things become meaningless so easily, and everyone's cold to each other and selfish and cruel. I don't know.
Because everyone thinks that they seem to think that they know what's going on, and I really don't think that anyone has a clear idea of what's going on, and yet we throw all of our, we just give it up to authority who think they know better than us, but experientially they're in the exact same position. And I think it's sad that we only have really a couple avenues of exploration available to us through education. And I think it's very valuable. As Krishna said, just we have to open up our avenues for our understanding of what's real, and it's very essential to our understanding. I don't know if I'm making sense. I kind of just lost my train of thought. Happens a lot.
I think it would be good if somehow we can organize, maybe for the end of next semester or something, if we can try to organize a forum or some kind of a small conference inside the school, and not we're trying to invite people from outside the school, to talk with the professors of psychology, biology, chemistry, religion, philosophy, and have with the students and faculty of both, and see what kind of interdisciplinary dialogue and make some kind of case for what we're trying to present, and how we feel education could be benefited if the scope is widened a little bit. And that might be very effective, or it might be a good thing to try to organize for next semester sometime.
Yeah.
I like
awesome.
that. Yeah, and they're building that multicultural center. Did you know about that?
No.
So I feel as though maybe the timing where they open that up, that might be a great location to come together all together.
In Galloway or in Atlantic City?
It's at the Galloway campus. Yeah. Did you, Alex or Lydia? Did you guys know about that? I just found out.
I had no idea.
I mean,
No,
they're running out of room there. They could take another parking lot away. Where are they going to put them?
Well, I don't know. There's a lot of land out in Galloway, so I haven't seen it with my own eyes, but they have like some. If you check the website, they have a page for it with like a animated drawing of the preview.
Cool.
But yeah,
I would
So
love to
they're-
do that.
they're
Just-
expanding. I think the just bringing things, departments, and culture together all on campus a little more, which
Nice.
may make Stockton unique in that way. Like, and we can do that idea that you had. That it would probably be great for campus.
I think Stockton, from my perspective, always kind of retained that little bit of distinction as far as being different. You know, like it was fine. I mean, this was one of the things that attracted me to it initially. That it was founded like in 1969 with all these free thinkers trying to just come together, you know, and they were hippies, but
Yeah.
at least they were trying to do something different, and they were trying to think differently, which is a good start. I mean, it's not everything, but it's a good start. And then
Mhm.
I know Stockton was one of the first schools to do sustainability in 2012. I think they started. That's when I went there, and yeah, so it might be a good place, you know. I think it is a good place to do something like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The forum idea as well. Online forum, or did you just mean in person?
I mean, the idea that I was talking about was like an in-person forum and
Okay.
conference, but starting something online too would be interesting.
Yeah, because
Anything it could fuel
all of
the
us would
conference.
continue to stay in like a group discussion or like ask each other questions, pick each other's brains about things.
Mhm.
Yeah, it could fuel making the conference happen on campus to start it
Yeah.
out as a forum.
Yeah, I would love that. That would be awesome. I think a lot of people would be surprised how much this, information would help them in their lives. So it might
Yeah.
be good to bring it out, just to, even if only a few people, you change a few people's lives, you change a lot of people's lives. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would someone be able to go over what leadership positions are available for this club?
Amanda, do you want to say something about it?
I was saying, Chris, just you go ahead.
Well, Amanda is our president now. She's very nice to take that position, and we still have all other positions open. So, vice president, I think treasurer and secretary are the other three. So if you'd like to be a vice president or any of the other two, you can send me an email or you could send Amanda an email. What were you thinking, Lydia?
I was thinking maybe treasurer.
Treasurer?
I
Okay,
think that would be fun.
sure.
Awesome. Alex, you can't take a position because you're a graduate.
Well, I
student.
will. I mean, I would be down to take a position, but it's really sketchy with my schedule right now because we're booking field work and like I'm not sure. It's still the first semester. I've only been like 1 month in. But once like things start going, like obviously I'm gonna definitely be a part of this club and like still participate. But I just want to like kind of feel out how I'm doing with my work and because obviously this is a super important time in my life as well. So but I'll definitely come to every meeting, so you'll see me around. Just not sure. I mean, yeah,
I was
that's how I
just
feel.
because
Yeah.
you're a graduate student, and I didn't know. It was great to see you in here today because
Yeah.
I didn't think that you were like allowed to. I guess. But
Yeah, no, I'm good. I go to class from 9 to like 4, and then after I'm usually good, or I'm just home studying. And so once I start my field work, I'll be out till like 8. So it'll be like a whole like 9 to 8 day, like nonstop. Some days, not every single day, but
So we'll feel it out, and then I'll let you guys know. But I'll definitely be here for the next 2.5 years for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lydia, I'll make you treasurer on the Osprey Hub if it's a go. Green light?
Yeah, I think it would be fun. Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Thanks.
Cool.
Cool.
Then I'll do that.
Any concluding thoughts or questions or anything?
I'm gonna process, digest. I also had very similar topic of conversation last night, very late. So my mind is in need of some clearing, I guess, and digest. Anybody else have any final thoughts?
Yeah, I was just gonna say I like your hat. Yeah, I like your hat. I like Fender hat. Yeah. Do you play guitar?
Yes.
Oh, really? How long?
Since I was 8, 10.
Oh, really?
20 years.
Wow. I've been playing since I was, I think it's like 12 years for me now, but Best Companion, I love it so much, dude.
Good.
Yeah, it's awesome. We'll have to jam. We'll have to have a jam sesh.
Sure. I'd love that.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
We can discuss
Yeah, philosophy.
all of it. I'd like to eventually. Okay, these are my final thoughts, because I actually should go because my mom is hanging out. I'm out to get a bed frame. I eventually would like to get us all together in person for a drum circle, kind of something like that, where we can discuss something that maybe Krishna you would like to bring to us, and maybe play a little music to feel
Sure.
it. Yeah, I don't know.
Have you guys
That
ever
sounds
heard
fun.
of Kirtan?
Nope.
Kirtan?
Kirtan.
Oh, I don't think so.
Kirtan is like a very ecstatic mantra meditation with a mridanga drum and kartals.
Yeah, we could do something like that.
That would be cool. That'd be really cool, actually.
I almost bought some. I've been wanting to do some sound bowls, but sooner or later I'll be crossing that bridge, because
Nice.
I've read a little bit about frequency healing, and I
Cool.
believe that ties into this science. Science in some way. I think so.
Yeah.
Biology.
It's okay with all you guys if I upload. I'm going to take out some parts, but if I upload this to our YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's totally fine.
All right, guys. Until next time.
All right.
That was great. Yeah. Great seeing you guys.
Yes. Likewise.
Yeah, thank you
Likewise.
guys.
See you next time.
Yes.
Take care.
See ya.